it again, do it again, do it again. An early mentor of mine into ministry, a phrase she said to me that would then later be repeated by many other mentors, said, in my eagerness, I was excited, I was overwhelmed, I was excited to be a minister, I was ready. She said, really, Samantha, it comes down to 3 things: hatching, matching, and dispatching. Of course, I was horrified. Could she have polished it up a little bit? Hatching, matching, dispatching. Why would anyone sign up for a job description that said you hatch people, you match people, and you dispatch people? I feel you, Steve. I feel you. But these hatching, matching, dispatching phrases I know now, although horrified initially, mean so much more to me in how we make human beings and the possibilities that we have as part of countercultural community here. How we arrive, how we welcome people who arrive, how we enter relationship, how we stay in relationship, how we die, how we leave. These are the cultural tasks that we learn as human beings if we're lucky to have the community that teaches us how to do so. Now, I arrived to Unitarian Universalism via my mother. My mother was a young parent walking down a church street in Riverside, California, and outside of a red brick building was a rare plant sale. Sound familiar? The church was doing something with gardens. And my mom saw this rare plant sale and knew she had found home. So she wandered in, only to find biologists and radicals and scientists and spiritualists and dancers and activists. And home was where she found it. Now, I arrived not because your parents drag you to something, but there comes a moment in a young person's life where you finally choose what you were dragged into. And the moment I arrived into the place where I already was, when I was sitting in the front pew of a church, probably middle school, maybe early high school, and the pastor at the front of the room was a woman pastor. And that woman pastor was saying the most radical, irreverent things one could possibly imagine coming from a pulpit. And she said things that I didn't know you were allowed to say. And she did things I didn't know you were allowed to do. And she cared for people in ways I didn't know we could be cared for. And she marched and moved and took action in ways people in my life had never done before. And it was in my child body then that I realized something happened in that old, creaky, slightly smelly, difficult pewed building of the UU Church of Riverside that was countercultural. That the culture outside of that church was something else, but what I found in church felt more real and more sacred, and that she was making it happen. I'm going to be a UU minister. Clearly, there's only one job that you can have that allows you to do that. I will be a UU minister. At which point I realized, wait, why isn't everyone wanting to be a UU minister? I am going to have job insecurity my entire life. Clearly, this is the best thing that you could possibly be doing in a community such as this, before abruptly calming down, hopefully. Why wouldn't everyone want to be a UU minister? Chalices for everyone. Make the chalices rain. The honeymoon phase of my love with this religion began. Right? Chalices for all. Hatching. When we arrive on scene and fall in love with something. To fall truly in love in a way that bonds us, almost completely covers us from what might be stained or tarnished or difficult about something, but we begin to bond with another space, another people, another community. Now, bonding, of course, is a romantic moment. It is the sweetness of early relationships where everything they do is marvelous. It is the sweetness of early relationships to organizations where everything they do would surely solve all of the problems. It is the sweetness of honey in our eyes and in our hearts, and also in the big ways. It is the birth of a child. It is the birth of a movement. It is the beginning of something so worth doing. Hatching. How do we hatch together? How do we arrive on scene together, ready to see and fall in love with each other? And how do we fall in love with the one who arrives? Hatching. I want to learn how to hatch with you. Matching. Of course, this looks like marriage, but it's kind of like that, and so far beyond it. What do we do once we've found sacred treasure? What do you do once you've found sacred treasure? And what happens when the honeymoon phase is over? Now, as part of my work with you, I will be gone a lot of the time. But I think these organizations teach us something about matching and what it means to stay in a relationship once you've found one. Quail Springs Permaculture Farm, 450 luscious acres of dry land, 2.5 hours away, a people who chose a place that was no inhabitable place. They chose a place particularly because it was not an inhabitable place. White People for Black Lives, an organization and collective of white anti-racists working in solidarity with people of color-led movements because white folks have a role in dismantling white supremacy. Restorative Justice. The Ahimsa Collective is an organization I'm a part of where each month I sit in circles in California prisons with folks who are incarcerated because they committed sexual harm. And inside those spaces, there is a belief that no one is unredeemable for the thing they did on the worst day of their lives. Clue, the belief that we are not separate from the work or the places that produce the work or the people who create what we use and do every single day of our lives. What do these organizations have in common is they keep us matched together. These organizations have something to say about what it means to stay in relationship. Now, the song, the Rumi song, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, Wanderer, Worshipper, Lover of Leaving, the original poem, that scripture that Sufi mystic is singing about, actually says, if you've broken your vow 10,000 times, come, yet again, come. Now, inclusive, radical communities, sometimes we confuse, well, what does that really mean? Y'all come? Is it a y'all come? No matter what? Permissive, allowing anything? No. Y'all come is not our tool to allow for abuse. Right? Well, what does it mean if you've broken your vow really 10,000 times? Like maybe 2? And if it was covenant, just 1 maybe, I don't know. No, if you've broken your vow 10,000 times, you are not dispensable. And this is what is countercultural, not only about those organizations, but about this community, is because it goes against the dominant cultural logic of our time. And the dominant cultural logic of our time has three particular things to say to us. One, you are dispensable. The moment is no longer convenient, pleasurable, beautiful, or interesting. I don't need it anymore, whether that is a relationship, a place, or my planet. Two, you're an individual. You are fundamentally alone, which means I don't rely on anyone, and I can believe the myth, I don't need you to survive. Three, the only things that matter is if it can be rationalized. And the beauty of rational logic, of course, is that it only has to stand up to its own self. If I can't think it through, then it must not be worth doing. So this is what we do here, and this is why spaces such as these are sacred countercultural spaces. Because we say no one falls outside of the interdependent web of relationship. No one and no place. Two, you were never alone. No one falls outside of the web of interdependent relationship. Three, there is such sacredness in that which is beyond our greatest dominant cultural logic. So when we do planting in places that people had thought were abandoned, and when we do work together that says, I choose you, and I will continue to choose you, we're matching. We're matching. Now, again, permissibility, inclusiveness, radical openness, sometimes it's hard to know how we set boundaries when we call ourselves so open and free. One thing I hope to learn with you as part of matching is how we do healing and how we do accountability. Healing and accountability is part of matching. Healing asks, what got hurt? What hurts? Is it a land? Is it a system of anti-Black racism that has permeated our country? Is it an incarceration, public housing, or education process that excludes and harms? Healing asks, what got hurt? Accountability asks, how are we responsible for it? And how do we make sure we repair it so that it does not happen again? And if you believe in a web of interdependent relationships, then it means not only does no one fall out of the web, it means that all of us are responsible for the web. I want to learn to match with you. Dispatching. Come, come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Dispatching, dying is another dominant cultural logic that says what ends is to be feared. The organization that grows smaller is in decline. The person who dies lost their battle with cancer. We have cultural metaphor after cultural metaphor that says we are supposed to be afraid of or avoid death. So it is countercultural of us in this community to practice what it means to make friends with a good death, with a life-giving death, what it means to leave well. Now, we do this every day. We do this in small ways. Each day we end things, begin things, match things, and we do this in big ways. I know for me, most recently, the experience of this was in my own grandmother's death. 1 year ago, my grandmother died, and as she was dying, she knew I wanted to be a minister, which is dangerous. And my grandmother and I would meet for pancakes until she no longer ate them. And what we would do when we would eat pancakes together, and I don't know if she realized she was doing this, but she would say, "Let me tell you what it is like to die. Let me tell you what this is like." And what she was doing in that choice was she was saying, feast on this. I'm not going to starve you. Feast on this. I don't know January Nordman, but I imagine it might be similar for some of you. That it's the ethic of creating something that will outlive you, that you leave well. You leave relationships well, organizations well, life well. It's actually one of the tasks of an intern. It is written in fancy UUA documents, many pages thick, PDF form, very deep on the 30th page, that I am supposed to learn how to leave you well. Do you know how to leave well? Do you know how to do a life-giving death, one that feeds people? And that's a social ethic, that is a personal ethic, that is an ecological ethic, to feed the people you do not even know are coming with your life. I want to learn how to dispatch with you. This Sufi mystic, come, whoever you are, he wrote another line. He wrote, start a huge, foolish project like Noah. These countercultural tasks we have are necessary, and they're foolish, but let's start them. May it be so.